show.
Now, we talk a great many things on this show with a great many interesting people. I'm delighted to say we're now joined by Nick Freeman, criminal defence lawyer, author and commentator, also known as Mr. Loophole. Nick, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Big piece in the Times this week about the plague of potholes and how the Times had a view on how Britain should be tackling it. And the state of our roads really is pretty awful, isn't it?
Well, it's horrendous. I mean, we're about £1 million potholes behind in relation to where we were in 2014-15. And when you bear in mind, for the last year, we've virtually been in lockdown for most of that time. We've had a unique opportunity once and for all to sort our roads out. And although there's been a slight increase in investment and a slight increase in repair work, it's massively behind what it used to be. It's about a third behind. And the roads have clearly got far worse. And we're now in a situation where, the roads are so badly scarred. You're driving along, you're supposed to be aware of everything. And the motorists have a serious dilemma. Because if you go over a pothole, it's a bit like playing British Bulldog. You either dodge them or you go over them. And from a legal perspective, if you keep swerving to avoid them, arguably you're driving without due care and attention, you're driving dangerously, and there's a fair chance you're going to have an accident and you will be criminally responsible. And your defence will be, well, I was swerving to avoid the pothole, but why didn't you pay attention to the motorist or the bicyclist, the cyclist, or whatever? But conversely, if you say, right, I'm just going to go over these potholes, you are inevitably going to damage. You're probably going to have a blowout. You're going to damage your vehicle. And of course, the council are going to say to you, their default position is always to refute it. They never hold their hands up and accept responsibility until the death, if they ever do. And they'll say, well, they'll surmise you were going too quickly. You weren't paying attention. And so what is the motorist supposed to do? I mean, and what I think needs to happen at the moment is I think we actually need guidance from the government until this situation is resolved. And it's going to take some time. What is the motorist supposed to do? Do we deliberately go over potholes, risk incurring damage, or do we try, as we are doing now, and swerve and avoid them? And should there be a special defence introduced so that motorists will not be criminally liable? Because at the moment, if you swerve to avoid one, that will not afford you a defence if you're involved in a collision.
No.
You'll be told, well, you should have been more aware. And the consequences can be very, very serious. But the other side of the coin, as I said, is, well, you're going over something deliberately. You've got no chance of getting any compensation at all because the council will accuse you of going too quickly, even though they don't know. And they'll say you went over it deliberately. Your fault. And bear in mind, the council owes all a duty of care. They have a legal responsibility to ensure that the roads are in good order. And what we're also finding, and I mentioned this in passing, is they are repairing some potholes, but the quality of the repair work is so bad that literally within a week they're falling into disrepair again.
Yes.
So it's a very serious problem that the media have picked up on. And what I'm suggesting now is that it's so bad that we actually need guidance from the government to exculpate us so that the motorist is no longer responsible from a legal perspective or indeed from a civil perspective when he's doing his best in really what is an impossible situation.
Because we often talk about cyclists and how dangerous potholes are for them, which is true. But what we don't talk about a lot, and I get quite often representations from different communities, is motorcyclists, people who deliver on scooters, of which there are millions now around the country, working for people like Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all that kind of thing, and Just Eat. And I've often been in a car where a guy on a scooter has actually swerved to avoid a pothole, but in swerving to avoid the pothole has come right in front of my car. And there's also that kind of peril as well.
Well, for all road users, for all road users, e-scooters, motor scooters, electric bikes, everybody is affected. And, obviously in a car, okay, you're going to cause damage to your vehicle and it could be a very expensive damage. You're probably not going to hurt yourself, but if you're exposed and vulnerable and you swerve, you're in a serious predicament and you run the risk of serious harm. So they are clearly more vulnerable and they're more exposed, certainly from a health perspective. And that's why I think the time's come for the government to say, look, until we sort this problem out, and no doubt we'll have an explanation as to why they haven't already done so, because they're never going to have this situation again. Literally deserted roads for about a year or even longer.
Yes.
What have they done? And people were saying at the time, this represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's get these things sorted, because they're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
We have third world roads at the moment.
Well, what I can tell you they're doing in London is they're simply digging them up and putting in more cycle superhighways, which is an absolute bane of everybody's life. But one final question for you, Nick. There was a rule that used to be, a law I believe, certainly there has been in the past, that if you had reported that there was a hole in the pavement, and having had that then reported, if you fell into it, it was the council's job to recompense you and to compensate you. Is the same true for roads? If you report that there's a pothole on a road, and then somebody then has an accident as a result of that, and it is recorded as a pothole, do you have any different recourse?
Yeah, well, it depends on the council's response. If a pothole is reported as existing and it meets parameters, I think that the depth has to be something like in excess of four centimetres. If it meets that, they then have a duty to put some sort of protective covering around it. Typically, it's white paint. If they do nothing, then of course they're completely liable.
Right.
And they have a duty to repair it within a certain time framework. And if they fail to do that, then of course they are liable. And they have a constant duty to inspect the roads at all times. And you have inspectors walking up and down our roads non-stop, looking at potholes, and then they have a short window for which to repair them. But the problem is, as I indicated, they're complying with that duty, but they're employing contractors who are not doing the job properly. And I've looked at records from my own personal experience, and what they're doing is filling them in within the time framework, and a few days later they're falling into disrepair again. Yeah. So the problem isn't being grappled with. So we need investment, we need money spending on it. The government recognise that, and the work needs to be allocated to people who can do the job properly. And you know, it's something that's so fundamental to our economy. We have to have a good road network.
No, we absolutely do, and I wish we did have. We don't have it at the moment, but Nick, hopefully with your help and other people's help, we will get one. Criminal defence lawyer Nick Freeman, their author and commentator, also known as Mr. Loophole. Potholes are a massive problem. If you've had an accident in one, I'd love to hear your story. 0344 499 1000. Did you try and get any recompense or compensation out of a council, and were you successful? That would be my question.